So first we want to thank everyone for coming. We're all excited to be here today. We've seen that this is quite the need for the community. You come do that, please. So a few housekeeping notes. We are recording this workshop for future reference and training. This recording will be included on our reference library soon. There will be some questions sprinkled throughout to kind of gauge your particular interests. So there will be a slide for each one of them. And there will be a panel Q&A following the presentations, and we'll take questions from live and virtual attendees. For the virtual attendees, you can put your questions in the Q&A portion, and we have a moderator that's going to collect all of those for us. Cookies and drinks are over there, and then before Diane and I talk about Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas specific items, we'll take a quick little break so people can grab another drink, go to the restroom, things like that. So in today's presentation, we'll get to this question in a minute. So today's presentation, you're going to hear from several community entities, some of CFSEK's best written and best researched grant application writers. They're far from our only good applications that we get, but throughout the presentation, you'll see why they're up there. Then Diane James is one of our board members for Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas. She's also the grant chair and an experienced evaluator. And then myself, I'm the program coordinator for Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas. We do have a few CFSEK board members here. I know Susie Boldrini. And then Linda Grills is our new president of the foundation this year. So any other board members that I'm missing? Okay, so we will be discussing steps, suggestions, and tips at varying experience levels and difficulty levels of grant writing. Some of you could complete a Community Foundation grant application in your sleep. Others have never even looked at a grant application before. Some of you want to know the nitty-gritty about applying for multi-million-dollar grant applications and projects. Others want to know how to get started and how to apply for some of the more frequent, smaller requests and want to better your applications. For those of you in the latter category, while you listen to the CHC gals, think about how you can use their processes as inspiration, but scale them down for simpler applications. And I'll ask you a little bit later if you've come up with some ideas. So for one of our sprinkled in questions, what do you want to have learned when you leave here today? Do we have any ideas that anyone wants to speak up? Yay, nay? Okay.
Yep, we have one. Yeah, we have one.
So
Yeah.
for me,
other way.
I want to learn where we search to find these community grants and about the verbiage that you need to use that they will consider you.
Perfect, perfect. And for the webinar attendees, the question was where to find the grants and what type of verbiage to use when you're applying for the grants. And you had a question? Or not question, statement.
Resources,
Okay.
resources to tap into.
Okay. And resources to tap into, and those will both be covered. So, Matt, are there any?
How to make our applications stand out, how to catch attention and convince grantors that we are the perfect candidate for their project.
Perfect.
And I would also like to expand where to start and search for grants.
Okay, another I think that's a common question is where to start, where to find them. Okay, so today's presenters, Leah Gagnon, Director of Inspire Health, a subsidiary of Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas. Becky Gray, unfortunately, can't be present today. She's under the weather. So Leah and Kelly are going to take over her slides. But Becky is the Executive Director of Building Health, a subsidiary of Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas. Kelly Pulliam is the Program Manager of Building Health. Abby McCoy is the Patient Engagement Coordinator with Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas. Diane James is a board member and grant chair of Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas. And I'm Kara Mishmash, the program coordinator for Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas. And Leah is going to start us off.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and spending some of your day with us. It really is an honor to be not just alongside this group of women up here, but to share this space and this room and this conversation with you today. Because while I really am not an expert here, but I do have experience to share, and I know that you all have that similar story. You have experiences and stories and causes to share, and I think that's something that's really, really special about today is that we actually get time to spend with each other and do some networking. So today is very much that, a conversation. We'll have some time, like Kara mentioned, we'll have some questions to get you thinking, get the juices flowing, and then we're gonna have a lot of time at the very end for us to answer questions. So hold on to some of those questions throughout the day so that we make sure if we don't get them answered during our session that we have time during the Q&A to do that. And really, like, there's no better timing for something like this to happen where we're focused on local dollars supporting local causes. And, in Southeast Kansas, there's a lot of challenges to the realities our communities are facing, and I imagine you all have a story and a cause. That's what brought you here today. This is also an opportunity to focus on the strengths of our communities and what we get to do together. So before we kind of get into there's an overview of all of the presentations today. Before we get into what I'm going to talk about, which is kind of like prepping before you start writing, before you start searching for your grant applications, I want us to think about your why, not your what, not what it is you're doing, not your project, but what led you to that idea. So I'm going to have a couple of us share, but while you guys are kind of thinking on that, it's really important that there's no project or outcome or lesson learned that didn't start with an idea in somebody's head. And I wanted to share a little bit about the room you all are sitting in today, which is a really gorgeous space. If you haven't been here before to the John Perolo Education Center, welcome. And for those of you that are online, I would describe this space as like an art gallery meets a spa meets like a music hall conference center, and it's good. It is good energy and sacred ground that you all are here and on today, because this space came from what we know about the future of healthcare, especially in rural communities, which is we have provider shortages, we have nursing shortages, and our students, the talent in our community that's growing up in our communities and knows our community best, is leaving our communities and they're not coming home. So the idea was to rally around this idea of giving students a space where they feel like they belong, and not just a space that was for students, but was for the community and for exactly what we're doing here today, which is to learn together and to connect. So and again, it started with an idea, a dream in somebody's head, and here we are today. Your why can also really help you shape the story around your project and your what. Some advice I had been given early on is always have an answer to the question, what would you do with $1 million? So your why is going to help you get to that question. And you never know who's in the room. We have funders in the room today. And you never know who you're sitting next to, traveling through town, meeting at the grocery store. I'm going to give like a little bit of a pause, but is anyone in the room, and I would love one person in the room with us today and one person online to share their why. It might be a person, it might be a book, it might be something that inspired you. Yeah, Tina.
So I'm with the KU Medical Center, Area Health Education Center, and Kansas HOSA. And so the why for us is the students and helping them be able to explore careers in healthcare and have that exploration opportunity before they're, seniors in high school or, halfway through college or all the way through college and realize this is really not what I wanted to do with my life. So we want them to have that inspiration and mentoring and networking, and I could talk forever about the why, but there's the short version.
That's perfect. Tina, thank you so much. Anyone, Matt, do we have anyone online?
To provide the community the opportunity to be healthy, the opportunity they deserve, and often have great barriers accessing.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, I think something that's important here is that every single person in this room has a story to tell. It's important, and you all have something to offer the world, right? Because I would imagine we have a lot of different stories we could tell, but they all lead to leaving people better than we found them and leaving places better than we found them, right? So really glad you're here. We're going to have a good conversation. Okay, so before you start writing, right, what can you do to kind of prep and prepare some items that can really get you ready to to plug in and go when those grant opportunities present themselves to you, or you go out and find them? To simplify this, it is building relationships, which we all know how to do. That it is in the fabric of, I say, in the human experience, is building relationships, connections. And what do you do when you want to get to know somebody, learn more about them, right? We might use social media or LinkedIn to go and do a little bit of our own research and a little bit of our homework to ask some of those questions and to learn what is most important to that person. What are we going to have in common? So I want you to kind of think about that. That's the theme you're going to see throughout today, is building relationships at every step of this process, and you all have the tools to do that, and establishing common language. Okay, so first relationship to build with is your community, and you already have that. Again, every one of you is here or online with us today because you know your community and you know the story that you have to tell better than anyone else. And there are data and resources about your community that I put up a couple of examples here, because the best thing you can do in your grant application is to use data to tell your story. And so there, again, a couple of examples of here. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are a lot of regional and local organizations that have really rich data. Does anyone know what CHNA stands for? community health needs assessment. So this, and I think I saw CCAP in the room. Is CCAP with us today? Yeah, so CCAP has a wonderful community health needs assessment on their website, really accessible. Hospitals are required to do a community health needs assessment every 3 years and make that information accessible to the public through their website. And this is, again, a really rich way of they've collected data through surveys, through focus groups, using resources like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to really help tell a story through data and statistics of what our communities are experiencing. And again, for us as grant writers, understanding the opportunities that we have to align our story with that data. Okay. And I think something that's really important, because again, we know Southeast Kansas. Again, we know the challenges that are here, but I would also say that there are really unique strengths and things to celebrate. So it may not, your story, your project may not revolve around addressing a need, but it may be something to celebrate, and celebrate the strengths of rural communities, of ideas that are coming together, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So one thing I want to encourage you to do is, as you are developing, right, you think about your why, you think about the purpose of your organization is to collect stories, because that is also some good qualitative data to have with you, to share those stories in your grant application and pair it alongside the data. And I imagine, again, if you are seeing these patterns and these stories of need, the data is going to be there to support you in your local resources. That can also help you develop what we are calling pocket projects. So again, even you're not looking for grants yet, but you have a list, you have ideas and stories, people and their realities to inspire those ideas and those projects, the response to those stories. So have a good list, just a really simple bullet. This is something we kind of did and developed at Wesley House along with our board. And some of it was like, we would really like to replace our ceiling tiles because we think it's important that people walk into a community space and feel like it's a dignified one. So that was one we kind of always had, okay, if there's a grant or opportunity that pops up, we can plug that right in. We already have some ideas, pocket projects ready to go, and that they're prioritized. Another nugget I want to give out is creativity before criticism. So avoid getting caught up in the policy side or the critiquing side of writing and ideas. Start with creativity, get the entire idea out, flesh it out, and then the criticism, the editing, refining comes next, okay? Because if you get so caught up on trying to write the perfect grant and tell the perfect story, you're gonna miss some of the really essential pieces, okay? And talk about it. Like, you can't process too much. I know I'm a verbal processor myself. Talk to your friends about it. Even if they aren't directly related to the work, they're probably going to be someone that's really good to bounce ideas off of and help kind of, again, build your message. Okay, the next relationship to focus on is with your funder. So yeah, what's fun about your funder? Again, get to know them. I have interviewed people for positions that have never even opened up CHC's website, and you can tell that they haven't read our mission statement, know that we're in 8 counties in Kansas and 2 in Oklahoma. Again, do your research, do your homework. When you are applying for funds or looking for funds, understand who your funder is and what's important to them. And those things, most funders, foundations, associations are going to have a strategic plan, at the very least, mission, vision, statements. They might list their board members. It's good to kind of see who their board members are, where they're from, and if they have funding opportunities, they typically will have a list of past awardees. So you can again kind of take that extra step in there, look at who else has been awarded in the past, what kind of projects they're around, and I can guarantee you, there's always a place for you and your message and the cause that you have. You can always find a connection. With Inspire Health, our goal is to connect students with opportunities, building relationships with local healthcare professionals, not just to inspire healthcare-related careers, but to also improve their experience and build community and calling, right? Because a lot of times our kids are maybe seeing providers once a year at a well child check, hopefully, or when they're really sick. So our programs offer that opportunity to build relationships and know that doctors also take their dogs on walks and are concerned about getting their kids to school on time and things, right? So I was talking with my dad, who's an aerospace engineer, and I was like, hey, do you know any millionaires that I can like talk to? And he was like, well, I don't really know how it connects. I said, I can tell you how it connects, because every single aerospace engineer and their families need good providers, need good healthcare systems with people that are from those communities and leading those systems. So you can always find the connection with your cause. So look, and the language and the materials that a funder has on their website, use that. Find where those commonalities are, put those off to the side to help establish your own language too, and maybe that's how you adjust your language and your messaging from audience to audience or funder to funder. Okay. Right, so those things kind of help to connect that why with action. Okay, so if we're talking about homework and research, this section is kind of like, I would call it the extra credit section. Finding some additional inspiration and collaboration by looking at what the research literature, the research base has out there. And and it's really, really simple. It's not just for like those of us who are data and research nerds. It is as simple as putting in your project alongside evidence-based models for my project. Best practice models for my project. And you're going to be able to find resources and look at different research articles, or some systematic reviews are really good because they're going to compare different projects that have been done. That way, again, not only can it build inspiration, but it can also kind of help you understand maybe what might work and what won't work for your community, so you don't have to start from scratch. And this might not be a search on the internet. This may be calling, you may know another community or another state that has a similar project that inspired you. Give them a call. Lean on those subject matter experts to learn a little more about their lessons learned. Okay, and not only do you not have to start from scratch, but you're not alone in this. Don't do this alone. Whether that is as simple as, again, you've read and reread your idea and you've had someone else read it and you've talked about it, but lean on your partners, lean on your board to help draft ideas, collect ideas. Maybe you have someone on your board that has their strength is writing, technical writing, or whatever it is. Use them and lean on them to do this with you. And if there is another similar project, like Kara will kind of talk a little bit about that. If there are similarly aligned projects, know the partners that have the same goals as you, because I can tell you funders are looking for that. They're looking for collaborative projects where multiple agencies are coming together to do a thing for the common good. And it really, really strengthens that application. And so I've got a picture there of a really fun collaborative project between CHC, our Food is Medicine program, K-State, their SNAP Ed nutrition and cooking classes, and then Wesley House allows us to use their space to cook in the kitchen. So this project is for food pantry clients who are also patients of community health center living with nutrition-related chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension. And we've got our dietitian that comes alongside and gives a budget-friendly shopping list. K-State comes alongside and gives really wonderful recipes and even uses some of the items that our friends are going to see at the food pantry to make, again, nutrient-rich meals. So again, really, really wonderful project. We've had a lot of success, and our partners and funders are really interested in seeing this move forward because it is a collection of agencies coming together for a common goal. Okay. Okay, so pretend I'm about a foot taller. My name's Becky Gray. Just kidding. We're really sad that she can't be here with us today, and I'm sorry you have to keep listening to me for just a little bit longer. I'm going to do my best because Becky's strengths are around that technical writing piece, and she's got some really good tools listed. I know we talked about the resources and how you kind of organize your message into plugging in for grant applications and where to search. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'm really looking forward to our question and answer portion to make sure that we cover the things that are on your guys' mind. So this question is that what? So I would love to hear, again, one person with us today, one person online. If you could give, like, again, your 10-second pitch of what your project is and what you're hoping to get funded. We would love to hear from you. And as Becky put there, hint, hint, there are funders in the room. So this is also an opportunity. Yes, oh, I love it. Love that energy. Okay, tell us who, yeah.
I'm Patty Street. I'm here with Dream Big Little One and several others.
Wonderful.
From our group. We are a nonprofit looking to provide beds and bedding for children who don't have that. And we have research that shows the better the bed, the better the sleep, the better the sleep, the better the child's life.
That's
So
right.
we'd like to continue working in that goal and have support from others.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for sharing. Okay, do we have anyone online?
No one has responded in the Q&A section.
Okay. Was there one other person that wants to share it? Oh. Okay, we'll do two. Julie, go for it.
Okay. I would love, my dreams is to have a transitional youth housing, for not only teen moms, but also LGBTQIA plus teens who are no longer allowed in their home.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Okay. Yes.
My name is Santana Johnson. My foundation is Southeast Kansas Juneteenth Foundation. And basically I would like to get funding to where I can continue to have the freedom, the equality, and the inclusion that's needed in the community.
Yeah.
And so basically, the way to do that is just continue to ask for unity. That's basically what it is. It's about uniting so many different people from so many different places. And I want people to know that Juneteenth isn't just about for Black people, it's for people who believe in freedom. So I just want to continue to let that be an educational purpose.
Wonderful. I'm glad you're here. Well, good. Okay, good. So we'll get into, do we have one?
We have
Yeah, perfect.
Funding for staff wellness, finding a building/office space. Goal is to help people in addiction and find what I have found through recovery, housing, and resources in my community.
Fantastic. Good. Yeah. Good ideas, right? Into action. Awesome. So now we have our idea. We've done a little bit of our research and we are ready to start putting some words on paper, recognizing it's more than just like brain dumping, right? We've got to get a bit of a direction. What are like using tools like that are SMART goals, right? That are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, right? Those using some of those tools to build, like we talked about, those applications that are really going to stand out. Sorry, I keep this mic and I we're getting close. Okay. All right, so before you begin writing, where do you find your grants? This is, right, depending on the grants you are searching for, which I would say, like, as much as you can, subscribe to listservs, newsletters, follow different foundations and associations that are related to your content area, your subject matter area, because that's where those things are going to be posted. For some of our federal grants, grants.gov is a really widely used tool that kind of collects a lot of federal opportunities. But I would love to hear, like, are there additional resources or spaces that you guys have found helpful when searching or being exposed to those grant opportunities? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm a volunteer for Pioneer Harvest Fiesta, but I'm kind of here on my own. Some of y'all know what that's like. I actually found out that there's a major database of grant information that I thought was available to me based on what I was told at a workshop with Kansas State University, sponsored by Kansas State University. It's called Pivot. Unfortunately, I found out, and the instructor of the workshop found out, that Pivot is only available to Kansas State University affiliated staff and faculty members and students and scholars who are actually affiliated with the university. I just spent 2 months only to find that out. I was tracing down a Pivot access permission from them, from KSU, it's not to be had because I'm not a visiting scholar affiliated with the university. So any of you who want to share my frustration with Pivot, let's get together and get jackets, because when I wasn't writing Christmas cards, I was trying to get into Pivot and get permission to use it. And finally, the instructor came back to me and said, I tried to get you permission like I thought I could get you permission. There's not to be had. So anyways, the point is that there are a lot of resources out there, but Pivot is not one of them for civilians who are not affiliated with that university. So I look forward to sharing experiences of big databases that, are university-based that are actually available, because I was going through the whole process. I put in the hours. I got an email address with the university, whatever's needed, and here we are. So anyways, thank you. I tried to mix positivity with frustration, but.
Well, but it's also a learning opportunity. So I so appreciate you sharing that experience too. And that's what, sometimes it can be hard to find all of the eligibility requirements right on the front page of whether it's a foundation page or an associations page or a university page. So again, that's part of that, doing your research and making sure that you've really looked at all of the information available on the eligibility requirements, and when in doubt, call, and hopefully, right, we can kind of build these templates that you'd have to be able to plug in. Okay, if this wasn't the right fit for my project, or I'm not eligible for this resource, that you can plug in and take that to another space. Yes?
I tried to utilize the Independence Public Library for Candid because they had a Google grant to put it in their library for grant proposal writers to utilize for free. That is not a cheap access subscription program. Found out when I got in there that I could not, I had to actually write the grant in the library. I couldn't download it to a flash drive and take it home with me and work on it at home. I had to be in Independence, and I live in Pittsburgh, so that's probably not a good idea. But it took me a little bit of time to find that out. But I also talked to Pittsburgh State University. I've also talked to the public library. There are enough of us in this building right now that could utilize that subscription service if we could just get somebody to fund it. Because as a nonprofit, we don't have that kind of money to do that. And that would be a big help to a lot of us, because there are smaller and medium and large size grants out there on their service, but we can't get the information because we don't have a subscription. And I think you're going to hear a lot today about the strength of leaning into community foundations, and the idea for them is to be accessible and low barrier to local causes. Another place to kind of think through and look is think about your major employers in your communities. Like hospitals often have foundations, and if their foundation is like specifically for cancer walks or something, talk to the hospital administration. Don't be afraid to shoot an email and say, hey, I have this idea. This happened to me just last week, and I got responded with here is a sponsorship form that you can fill out. So always ask when in doubt. Walmart Foundation, they've changed their system electronically. It can be a bit of a pain, again, when you're working with a really small team. But I think, again, that's where we can use these networking opportunities to kind of learn and maybe have some 2.0 workshops. Okay. So another term to have for that is NOFO or NOFA, Notice of Funding Opportunity, when you're searching for grants. Okay. We talked about looking at the funder materials they have listed. If they have an evaluation listed alongside their application, download that, save it, copy the questions, use that to build your outline and to build your to fill in the different pieces of the application. Look at your calendar. You will hear it over and over again today, it is never too early to start on your application. And like what's helpful for me, someone that does not have great time management skills, as you can tell, is to
put calendar reminders. Like I put calendar reminders in my calendar, sometimes every week, blocks in my calendar to work and focus on those specific applications. We talked about eligibility, reread. You can't read that stuff too many times before you start. And then this is just a really basic template for an outline. There's nothing magic about this. It's one word, heading, subheading, and what points you want to make. If you can simplify it, you can start simple, start being creative, get those ideas down, and then you can work backwards. Okay, so this is just a good kind of outline to start with. Use the funder materials to fill in your outline. Okay, this is a point to just think about your voice. Remember, it's a really beautiful balance of thinking about that your funder doesn't know you and doesn't know your subject. All right, so don't write without filling in those blanks, but also say more with less. Wherever you can be concise in your writing, it's a win. Use the data to tell the story. If the data justifies the need, you don't need to justify your need, right? So again, a great example from our work with the food pantry is I really don't need to say a whole lot other than 1 in 5 households is experiencing food hunger in our communities, and 1/3 of our children are living in poverty, which is up from last year, to get people excited about filling that need. So wherever you can say, again, say less is best. We've talked about kind of regional statistics, opportunities, and your purpose. I really appreciate this slide, and I know Diane does too, and anyone else who has reviewed a grant application in the room. You're not just writing for you and your story, because again, as the not-for-profits, we have so much to say. We have so much to share, because not only are we in the weeds of the issues and the challenges, but we're also trying to tell the story. So this top picture is like, that's us writing our grant, and we're like excited about what we're doing, and we're getting all the resources together, and we know all this information, we've learned so much. And then the bottom picture is the poor reviewer that's not only reading your grant application, but how many, Kara?
70 plus.
Maybe another 70 or more. So be nice to them, right? Think again. So start. Kelly's going to give you some really good tips on starting with reading and rereading your application, and wherever you can say something more concisely, do that. Okay. Work a little backwards. Think about that context of who, not just about what you're writing, but about who is going to read it. Okay, and kind of a call back again of really feeling that you have not just a story to tell, but you have the data, and you may have some examples to bring into your application, and maybe you've processed with a couple subject matter experts, or maybe you are the subject matter expert on your project, and you just need to talk with somebody else. This is not an ad for EasyBib, but this is a free public resource for you to cite your sources. Even if your funder's not asking for a bibliography or a list of references, this is really good to have, because that way, when you've done all of your research and you've talked with different people and you've read some books, you can use this to plug in your resources, and it will format a really, really nice citation reference guide for you to have on hand. It's kind of a nice, again, all my resources, all my subject matter expertise lives in one spot, and EasyBib's a really great tool to use. Has anyone used EasyBib before in writing? Yeah, awesome. One, woo. Okay. All right, so we've got our outline, we understand our story, we have the data, now we're ready to go back and fill in. So again, these are things we've talked about, right? What's important to you, what's important to your funder, tell the story, weave in your data, and cite your sources. Another resource just to kind of put in your pocket is the Purdue OWL or Online Writing Lab. This, again, is another really good source a lot of students use, writers use. It will help it's a tool for you to organize your message and your story. If you have to do a specific format for a specific grant, they've got a tool that can take you through all of that. And it can also help identify if you are using maybe a passive voice or have an opportunity to make your message a little stronger, it can help you kind of find your voice. Okay, you guys are done with me. Aren't you happy? I'm going to hand it over to Kelly to finish out these slides and talk a little bit about data. And we'll keep the story going.
All right, so I'm going to continue on with Becky's slides.
Yeah, just lean right into her. Yep.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to continue on with Becky's slides, and we're going to talk about the initial revision. And so she starts with attending to logic. So when you get finished with your application, read it all the way through. Look at it for, does it make sense? And then you're going to break it down into paragraphs, and then you're going to break it down into sentences. So this is going to help you to see if it makes sense to the person you're writing it for, or the people you're writing it for. Also, attend to language. Use an active, not a passive voice. Don't say if we get funded, say when. That's going to be an important thing because that shows that you believe in your project and that you're going to move forward with it. Also use strong verbs. So I just looked up some strong verbs. Like I said, Becky's slide. So some of those are construct, examine, focus, emerge. So use those stronger words, like Leah had also said. And then avoid jargon. I know in all of our agencies, we have acronyms that we use all the time. The people reading the grant are not going to know what those acronyms are. Use the full words. Okay. And when we look at collaborative revision, engage other readers. So you probably have people you work with that can also look at it. Engage your family. Becky has included a picture of her dad and her aunt. They read some of her grants. They're just lay people. They don't know what the subject matter is, but they're just proofreading and looking, does it make sense? And I think that's the important message that she wanted to get across was make sure that it makes sense to other readers. Then you're going to verify against the grant announcement. Make sure that you go back to that grant announcement. Are you giving them what they're asking for? As well as the evaluation. If that's available to you, use that. Go back through those questions and determine, is this what they're asking for? Does it make sense? That is going to move us on into data. So the question for this one is, what data does your agency collect that would be relevant to grant requests? And if anybody wants to respond to that, if you're already collecting data. Yeah, go ahead.
Low and moderate income of families in the area. There's a lot of grants focused on that area.
Great, so already collecting data on that. Oh, the data related to low to moderate income families. Yep, go ahead.
Our organization collects how many beds we distribute on a monthly basis, how many volunteers we have that are working on a regular basis, how many miles they contribute toward our organization's mission. We have a lot that we don't collect, but there comes a point where you wonder how much more should I get. We also evaluate at the end, so we're collecting data that way as well. Race, sex, age. Sometimes grants want economic data. We can't provide that because we're working in a cloudy area there with Privacy Act stuff. So there's just a lot of things that we could collect that we don't, because we don't find that it's going to be all that useful. But what we do collect has been very, very helpful.
Good. So she had said that they collect data on how many beds per month, how many miles are traveled per month, and their volunteers and how many hours volunteers are spending, and talked about how some of the data is not collected because maybe it doesn't relate But you did say some things about like demographic data. So a lot of times when we work with people, that data is easily accessible, the demographics. So we'll get started with data and why data is so important. So the grant application should be a group effort. And why I start with this is because people in your organization have different skill sets that can add value to your application. So one person might be good with constructing sentences and putting together words, while another might be good at finding resources, another collecting the data, and another might be good with proofreading. So putting it all together, and I know that's what worked at Wesley House. We had a team when we wrote grants and did those applications. So it went through several different people with their different pieces that they brought to it. Know your funder. I know you've heard that already several times. It is so important to know what their mission is, what they're looking for. So look them up, do research. Read about the grant you're applying for. Make sure you know what they're requesting from you. Make sure that you're providing the data that is related to what you're doing. So I used an example of if you're applying for funding to build a fence, don't tell your funder how many jars of pickles that you gave to people that you served that month. It's not going to matter. So when it comes to data collection, make sure that you have a database that you can use, that you can draw reports from, and that collects the necessary data. If you don't have a database, a spreadsheet. Excel is great to work with. I've done it both ways, and I do like the database that does it all for you, but you can make the other work. Always use information that is accurate, that is up to date. You don't want to give them old information. If you're giving them statistics from 2 years ago, that's not going to help. You want to be closer in time. And like I said, with the accuracy, make sure that you check your reports. It is so important to have complete and accurate data. In what I do, in looking today, I got a report from another agency that looks at our data, and they said, hey, you've got one mistake. After this is done, I'm going to go fix that one mistake. So I like to make sure that we've got the most up-to-date data. And when you present data, use terms that are understandable and easily digestible. Once again, it's like with the acronyms. Use data that anybody can understand, not just that people who know exactly what you're doing understand. Your funder is going to want to see information related to the need that's in your proposal. They also want to know that the funds are being used for what you asked for. Ongoing data will tell the story of the need. So keep that data going. And I'm also going to circle back to a little bit of it was in Becky's slides, but what Leah had said about the engaging your community. Definitely use those needs assessments that are available, and it's easy to look them up. Just do a Google search. Google's amazing for some of those things. So your data does not tell the entire story. When I was talking about building the fence, yeah, it's important to know how many people came through your doors or came across the grounds. What you don't see is maybe the story about the child who wandered out into the road because the fence wasn't there. So you want to make sure that you're using qualitative as well as quantitative data, showing the actual need in the community. So get those stories, do focus groups, do interviews. That's going to give you a good round picture to go with the numbers. Make sure that your data is organized and ensure that you have the method of collecting the data of the services that you're going to be providing with the grant funds once you're awarded that shows your funder that, yeah, I did what I said I was going to do. Better facts and details in quick reach make for stronger, more compelling grant proposals.
Okay, hello. Let's see if I can. All right, good afternoon. My name is Abby McCoy. I am a patient engagement coordinator for Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas. Thank you to everyone who's here today. Thank you to the Community Foundation for hosting us all in this room. This is wonderful. So for my question, has anyone ever submitted an application for funding and it did not get awarded? Did you ask why?
No, I kind of knew why.
You kind of knew why? Did you ask why? What was the answer?
Well, I coordinate a statewide program, and so sometimes trying to do a statewide program, and some foundations want it, are specific to a region. So we had isolated the grant down to how it would serve that region, but it just didn't have a large enough impact for what they were looking for.
I just didn't write it right. I didn't have the format the way they had it set up. The way I was taught, I brought it not even thinking about looking at all the information, the guidelines and all that. So that's the reason why. So when she was talking about making sure you read the guidelines and all that, make sure you read the guidelines and all that because it will send it back.
This follows perfectly into my next point. I'm gonna tell a story about a funding request submitted that we did not get awarded, and we called it month to month, as at the time we were facing a very real need of helping women and girls have easy and dignified access to menstrual products through our food pantry. Justifying the ask was not a problem, as nearly 48% of the population living at or below the federal poverty line in Crawford County are women and girls between the ages of 12 and 59. The application was beautiful. It spoke on many of the points we had reviewed today. However, when I had assumed the research was complete, I had forgotten to do something that all of these women outlined previously, and I did not talk directly to the funders. Had I done that, I would have known that it's not something that this particular fund does because they don't fund disposables. But wonderful things came out of this conversation, and wonderful opportunities came out of this conversation. They absolutely believed in the mission and agreed it was a need. And this was a true aha moment. So with the research that had been done and the understanding that we had the need of going forward, we went successfully on to partner with I Support the Girls, which is a nationwide initiative with over 6,000 social service agencies and corporate partners. That's mission is to help make dignity the norm, one bra and period product at a time. So not a failure. Perhaps you just did not apply to the right foundation or the right thing. Simultaneously, when presented this to our advisory board at the time, a private donor who had found inspiration in the ask also stepped forward and funded the full amount that was requested. So this was doubling success and fulfilling the need. So this is kind of a story of a turned down application, but not at all a failure.
So basically just asking the reason why.
Ask the reason why. Always ask why. If you did not get approved for funding, ask why, because then you'll have insight. And you will also have a beautiful application that you can apply to other avenues. So your work has not gone unrewarded.
Her application was amazing. It wasn't the application, it was just disposables weren't.
I paid her to say that.
Not
So-
much. I'm joking.
So moving on to my section, post-award, you've been funded, now what? We're there. It's like, here you are, you've done all the things, you got the research together, you drafted, you made lists, you made budgets, you got quotes, you dreamed big and you reached for the stars. And you were awarded. Huzzah. Well, I'm here to inform you that your work has just begun, and you should always follow Murphy's Law when implementing, because oftentimes when doing larger projects that require the rearrangement of space, refurbishment of what has been overlooked, any form of construction or group coordination. Has anybody here done volunteer coordination? It's pretty tough. You will always stumble upon the unexpected. So it is very important when writing these applications to get multiple quotes for the work to be done or the equipment to be purchased. Post-award, when you're ready to go and hit the ground running, don't be shocked when the first painter who quoted you the best can't do the job because of a back injury. The second painter shows up and doubles their quote because they think you're in a pinch. But maybe the third painter, who wasn't available to do the job at the time, had somebody drop out and they'll show up and help you see your vision to success. This will always happen. I'm trying to think, other examples. In larger funding initiatives, you've leveled a building because you're going to build a facility and mine shafts fall out underneath. That adds a ton of expense. So always be prepared for these things and always expect the worst.
For those of you not from Pittsburgh, the entirety of the town is undermined, so.
You are currently standing on a mine shaft, well, sitting on a mine shaft. So it's also very important to consider if the project will pause your service delivery model and have a backup plan from when the work runs over time and over budget. Having staff prepped and ready for modified service deliveries is a must. Something we unfortunately learned in the pandemic, modified service delivery, how do we do this, is now a skill set we can rely on to navigate how to best serve our populations when we don't have full access to our resources. Always begin planning and spending from the most important line item down, as perhaps the price of your items or labor costs had shifted in the months between your initial quotes and your funding awards. Speaking of budgets, and I would like to emphasize this, as I have had people in positions that were not familiar with funding initiatives ask me very directly, if this idea is so good, why was it only partially funded? Partial funding is not a failure. Partial funding means that the funders who reviewed your application believed in your vision and also believed that other people would too. So when you are partially funded, go to your board members, go to your social clubs, go to your service organization, and show them what you did and show them your idea. People will also believe in the mission and they will step up. Amazing things can happen with just partial funding. I mean, I don't say just partial funding, with partial funding. So always document your journey. Take photos of every phase of the development. Something you don't think will matter in the end. Keep every receipt. Keep a rolling total so that you know exactly how much you've spent and how it's been spent. People will ask along the way. And this will make your evaluation so much easier. This will make Kara's life so much easier when you have this all packaged up. And maybe they won't ask for all of the information. Maybe they won't ask for a 15-page PDF of every single work receipt you have, but you'll still have it in your pocket because sometimes they do. And then finally, local ideas can turn into big initiatives. And this is where I'm gonna embarrass Heather Horton. Hi. Okay. So here's a great example of this and a project that we did not develop, but one we had the opportunity to be a supporting partner for. Here's Heather being a snow angel. She's taking the time out of a busy holiday season to deliver food to people suffering from housing insecurity. She's ensuring that no one went without warm hearts and full bellies on a blistering Christmas Eve. And then the next photo is the following summer with the launch of the Spread the Loaf initiative, a model in which anyone who wishes to donate healthy, fresh loaves of bread to local food pantries can do so through the Pittsburgh Bread Company and the partnering restaurant toast, or, you know, she didn't pay me to do this. I didn't tell her I was going to do this. Heather had a vision and we had a need. And because of the support that was garnered, this launched into something sustainable and was successfully funded for expansion. Not only that, it's also something an entire community could proudly participate in. This is a wonderful example of how kind gestures can turn into big ideas, and to always keep your doors open because you really never know what kind of magic will happen. And that's the end of my spiel. I think we're gonna take a break.
Yeah, let's do a 10-minute break, bathroom, snacks, things like that, and be back at 2:13.
was announced before, I'm on the Board of Trustees for the Community Foundation, Southeast Kansas Community Foundation, and I am the chairman of the Grants Committee. So I'm going to talk a little bit about being what we look for as the committee people. So let me let you know that all of the committees at the Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas are volunteer committees with members that you probably or might see every day. They interact with our community the same way that you do, and they see the needs that you do. I tell you this so that you understand that the evaluators for CFSEK grants are in touch with Southeast Kansas. Many of them work, volunteer, and interact with your clients and agencies. You can trust that they understand the needs of our rural communities. And my question is, if you are reviewing applications, what is something you'd prioritize? If you were the evaluator, what would you prioritize? Kelly?
I would prioritize probably the number of people, the effect that they're proposing, the number of people that grant would serve.
Okay, the number of people that that grant would serve. Outcome?
Brevity and specificity about what your organization is trying to do and how we're going to avoid redundancy and kind of just hone in on that one thing that nobody else can do that you can do.
Be specific about what you're...
And be as brief as possible.
Be specific and be as brief as possible about what your agency wants to do. Matt, was there one online?
One I really like, maximum impact with the dollars provided, providing basic human needs. Want to make sure the data matches the needs.
Very good. The evaluation process is subjective. So what I offer you today is from my perspective. What I find important, another evaluator may put that lower on their list. I do think, though, what I will present is a set of tips that have been universally mentioned as priorities by the committee members. Okay, the question is, does your project align with the grant funder's mission? Very, very, very important. One of the things that we'll look at is the board representation of your agency. Are they from Southeast Kansas? Do they align with what the Community Foundation wants to do, which is in our community, in our counties, in Southeast Kansas? So if we see an agency that has applied that's from Nebraska or another state or
Topeka or Wichita.
She said Topeka or Wichita. We're really interested in Southeast Kansas and making the lives of our people better here. The agency mission. What is your mission? Does it align with the grant funding? Make that very, very clear. Previously, the people have talked about being concise and making your words count. And then the project mission. Make that clear. We want to know exactly what you want to do in as few words as you can and how it's going to benefit the people that you're doing the project for. And then Kara is going to talk in depth about the budget, but as a person who looks at these, and it's been mentioned before, we don't look at one or two. There's probably 100 that we look at. So we want things very clear for us and provide the numbers. We need to know that. And we need to know what your wanting these funds for, whether it's pencils or toothpicks or, mattresses or food or whatever it is. And you need to line item those. And if you can provide pictures or a link to what you want to do, for instance, Greenbush wanted personal telescopes. And I had no idea what they were asking for, but they had a picture that I could click on and a link to what that object does and how much it cost and everything. It was very easy for me to do. So when you're looking at 50 or 100 applications, make it easy as possible for the person who's going to read that grant. And if you can attach pictures, I personally love them. If you just tell me what that is, then I'm going to have to take my time to go search what that is if I don't understand what that is. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about partial funding. And one of the people online, which we didn't say earlier, they had had several grant proposals rejected. And what they got back was that the need is there, just not enough money to grant to everybody. So that's what partial funding is all about. And it is not a failure. And believe me, if the money was there, probably every grantor would, if they agree with what you're proposing, they would give you that money. So one of the things that we look for is, are you seeking granting from other sources or funding from other sources? Let us know that, because that really does make a difference. Let us know that you will accept partial funding, because if you don't, and that's all we can do, we're probably going to say it might not work for both of us if you're totally depending on our grants. And just as an example, last year our committees granted $335,173 in competitive funding grants. That's great money to put back into Southeast Kansas to do wonderful work that all of the agencies do. The catch is the request totaled $804,000. The need is great, and and I believe that community foundations are going to become more and more important to us. So I think we need to let people know how important they are to where you live and what you want to do.
You got to hear the CHC gals talk about what they do to apply for grants. They legitimately include bibliography and citing of sources and data in their applications. It is 1000% appreciated, because we can see that the work was done. Some of the smaller grant opportunities don't require as much information to be provided. So how would you adjust some of the more advanced steps and data points to accommodate community foundation requests or requests from smaller agencies? Any of their tips that you can hone in on and say, I could use that, but don't have to do it quite as in depth? Anyone online, Matt? Okay, I'll use their objective as an example. That using an objective and not objective, I apologize, an outline. So using an outline can help guide you in the direction to creating a great application, and it doesn't have to be this great 75-page report. It very easily can be scaled down very small, but it'll give you a guideline on how to answer your questions and fill out your application. So We are going to talk about now CFSEK, Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas, specific grant applications and new offerings. So we'll start with some tips first. One, sounds cheesy, start early. Leah, I think, mentioned earlier, you can't start soon enough. I will say there is a too early because ours aren't visible until they're live, but start early. And you can start the research prior to our applications going live by seeing who we've previously granted to, seeing earlier objectives, earlier focus areas, things like that. There is research to look into prior to the applications going live. So if there is additional information needed or information that needs updated, you will need time to make those adjustments, make those changes. Another frequent thing that we see is duplication of services. So there's a lot of clothing closets around in Southeast Kansas. It is a need. It is a project that many people want to help. But if you're coming into the area and want to start a new one, a good idea would be to research what other agencies in the area are providing a similar service. It's difficult for the committees to fund two of the same project from different agencies. Diane mentioned the huge disparity in funding availability. So if that is something that you're passionate about, you could potentially reach out to those other agencies and see if you can do a collaborative application together. And then it's showing the committee members that there's additional community investment in the project, not just one agency adding another of the same service to the area. Okay, read the instructions. Everyone in high school learned that. Please read the instructions. Even if you have requested a particular grant 100 times, read each summary, question, and instruction carefully. For our applications specifically, I'm always trying to make sure that our questions and processes are universally understandable and accessible. I know what I mean when I write the question, but that might not translate to you guys. So I take constructive criticism. If you don't understand a question and I hear that complaint often, I will adjust that question, which means in future applications, it might look different. And new grant funds might include a set of instructions that differ from other grant funding or other grant opportunities. So if you aren't following instructions and you upload documentation that's inadequate, that isn't how it was requested, how it was instructed to upload it. Our board of directors list is a good example. We want ours uploaded as an Excel document using a template that we provide embedded in the application. If you upload your own that's been saved as a PDF, it makes a portion of our jobs harder. It might get to a point when we have so many requests that not following the instructions will get your application bypassed. So, and I think collectively, foundations, the committee members, everyone, other grant providers would rather have a hard time with the evaluation process because every application is so intentional, so well written, so compelling, than eliminate applications for great agencies because they didn't follow instructions. So, proofread. They mentioned it before, proofread, proofread, proofread. If you copy and paste from old data, from an old application, make sure you are not using old information. Make sure you're not referencing a different grant in a new application. Keeping the wrong grant name looks a little disrespectful to the funders that you couldn't take the time to proofread. Okay, proofread again. Bad grammar or sentence structure can be confusing. The people evaluating grant proposals have dozens and dozens of applications to filter through. This is going to be a common statement. Don't make the evaluators interpret what you mean. They could be wrong, and it could result in less or no funding. It's not their job to interpret your intent. It's your job to make your application understandable, and they will take it at face value. Make sure your budget's clear. I will show you our budget form, and we'll kind of walk through that a little bit. But you don't want to include multiple items in one amount, one lump sum. You want to break your budget down so that the committees can understand your request fully. So if you're making hygiene packets with toothpaste and toilet paper and soaps and shampoos and things, you want to say, instead of saying 100 hygiene packets at $20 equals $2,000, you want one line item to say 100 toothbrushes cost $200. 100 travel shampoos cost $150. The committees don't need to guess what's in your kits. Don't muddy up your application by including items like administrative costs and staffing costs, volunteer hours, etc. Our new budget form will allow you to include those things in a separate portion to kind of break it up, but also show that you've got some additional investment in your project. And we have had committees that have awarded less or awarded none because they did not understand the budget. Check your application on the due date. Even if you submitted your application on the first of the month, the day that it was opened, check your application on the due date to make sure something didn't happen. Technology sucks sometimes. So just confirm that it's been submitted. If it is sitting in draft, for whatever reason, it will not be submitted to the committees for evaluation. Whoops, I didn't change any slides. Wow, cool. Yay me. Okay. Don't use AI. Please, don't use AI. We can tell. Leah mentioned in some of Becky's slides that your voice, your writing style, those things are important. We want to hear from you. We don't want to hear from ChatGPT. Providing photos, if you're providing in your application a photo of a project idea or an inspiration or something like that, that's not quite as big of a deal. In your evaluation report, when you're showing what your project has done, don't use an AI photo. It's been done, we can tell. We want to see that the funds that are being given out are being used how they were proposed. Well, I also skipped steps. Weekends and holidays. I would wager for larger grant funders as well that this applies. CFSEK closes at 4:30 Monday through Friday. We aren't opened on weekends or holidays. If the application closes on a weekend or holiday, or if you don't start working on it until 8 p.m. on the day that it closes, nobody's going to be there to help you. Another good thing to think of is every single one of you included, you have other things to do in association with your job. So just keep weekends and holidays in mind for those types of things. So I try to think of a less aggressive way to say this, but truly this is the only way. Lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. If I get phone calls 2 days before an application closes and you're just starting, that's super frustrating. I've had to, and Diane has mentioned that I apparently am an enabler. I've stayed late helping people that I shouldn't have to do. Because what you guys are providing is a nonprofit service to our community. Personally, I would like everyone's applications to be perfect and wonderful and not have to be eliminated for silly reasons. But I can't give that same additional service to every single person. So please prepare, please plan, please don't wait till the last minute. Okay. And a good tip, if you're not already using it and already applying to multiple different grant opportunities, is to create a specific file folder on your computer that has, like for CFSEK, we have a specific board list that we want used. So save that, update it as needed. And then when you open the application to apply, it's there and ready for you to upload without having to filter through 1,000 different things. You can have a document that has your mission statement, your agency information, things that aren't going to change application to application that you can copy paste. So having that stuff at the ready, your IRS 501c3, your W-9, those are things that you can have ready, and it doesn't have to be a mad dash to find things. Okay. Now we are going to talk about some new help options. So in your packets, I included all of our resource documents. We do have some tutorials that we've included on our website. The first document I actually don't have up here. I'll get to that in a second, sorry. All of those documents are either on our website or they're embedded in the applications and easy to access, or both. So, and there's video tutorials that are also embedded in the application. So in those, office hours, for each new grant cycle, I will be offering blocks of time that you guys will have access to select a 15-minute time frame. You schedule it, it'll be on Zoom, we'll connect, you can ask questions. If some of my questions don't make sense, that could be a topic of conversation. If you want to make sure that what you are providing is accurate, that can be a topic of conversation. But I have 15-minute blocks set up, or larger blocks, but in 15-minute chunks to meet with you guys on Zoom for each grant application. Okay, so the documents. The first one is a list of our grant cycles. That one could get outdated soon just because we add to our available competitive grants regularly. We will actually be having one come up. It's not important to go too deep into, but it'll probably be outdated as soon as next year. And competitive granting is only a small percentage of the grant funding that CFSEK provides. The competitive funding is the application, having to apply and having a committee look over applications and select recipients. Okay, the next one is the checklist. That's going to give you a suggested list of things to have ready when you're ready to apply for a grant. Every grant cycle is different, so some might apply, some may not. The next one, okay, that's the checklist. The next one after that is what do the nonprofits status categories mean. So it's an explanation of what each category is, but also there's a bit of a tip on what will be required documentation. And a good example is the 501c3 public charity. You'll need to provide an IRS 501c3 determination letter. A state tax exempt form is not sufficient. Okay. And that one is 2 pages. The rest is on the back. The next one is our budget spreadsheet. In my example that I'm going to show you, it's extensive. It doesn't have to be. Dream Big, Little One. They're a very good example. They have a very specific goal. They usually, I don't know if it's going to change, but they usually have beds, frames, bedding, and pillows. So they'll include those items in set line individual line items. They want 13 beds at $100 a piece. So they'll spell it out. So it doesn't have to be the example that I'm going to show you. And then the bottom portion, you'll be able to provide additional funding that you've received. If you don't have any additional funding, if CFSEK is your only request, then all you will do is enter that request here. Okay. Publicity is not so that we can toot our horns, specifically. We require publicity for a few reasons. We publicize the grants that we give out, not dollar amounts, just the agency name and the project name. And we want you to publicize as well with specific instructions. So this form here, again, embedded in the agreement form. So too often, I can guarantee every single one of you has felt this. Too often, the negative voices are the loudest voices. We want to drown those voices out. We want you guys to show the community that what you're doing to make a kid's life better, to make a single mom's life better, to make a homeless addict's life better. And so if you publicize your project, it can have the benefit of encouraging somebody else to donate funds to us to be able to support more nonprofits in Southeast Kansas. It could show people the types of projects that their funding can support that they may not have thought about before. And a really good example, Community Foundation of Southeast Kansas has 3 affiliates, Columbus, Fort Scott, and Girard. So one of our Columbus area Community Foundation funds, the Titan Ultimate Feet Fund, started because the donor saw publicity about the Dragon Feet Fund in Pittsburgh providing new shoes to kids in need. So now Columbus has their own fund providing the same thing because they saw it on Facebook. Photos go in tandem with that. Oh. Diane mentioned in a grant application, she likes to see photos. Everyone wants to see photos of what a project is doing. That sells it. So I've provided a list of ideas that is not comprehensive, but there's also ideas included if your agency has confidentiality concerns. I used to work at one of those agencies, Safe House Crisis Center. There is not a way in heck that I could have shown a picture of one of our clients receiving something grant funded. But there were ways to work around that and not show that person. So this document has some ideas for that. Okay, more ideas, it's 2 pages. Okay, so I am going to open up our, what's happening? This is gonna get sketch for a second, sorry. Matt. Okay, we're gonna kind of skip that. There is on the login screen, hang on. Nope, wrong login. On the login screen, right. Oh, is it? Oh, because this is the wrong one. On the login screen, there is an embedded link to watch a full tutorial on an application. So, I wish this worked out a little bit better for me, but the application in multiple places, how many of you have seen one of our applications before? Okay, are they super scary? Okay, it can seem like maybe there's some scary elements. It doesn't have to be. I think community foundation applications want to make sure that our processes are accessible. We don't want people to not apply because it's too hard. So you're gonna see pretty common questions that realistically, if you've done some of the research that's been mentioned, you'll have all of those answers. Outlining a narrative to your project, explaining why your project is important to the community, to the people that you serve, and why, like a job application, why should we fund you? And in certain points in the application, you'll see in bolded red letters, need help? Click here for a tutorial on how to save a PDF and upload it to the application. And then the templates, the board template and the budget template will also be embedded. They're bold blue. You should be able to see those. And then there's also a portion for partial funding, if you will accept partial funding. That's important, not just to show that you would accept a lesser amount, but sometimes if somebody doesn't have a backup plan for the rest of their project, if they can't complete their project without full funding and we award them that money's gonna have to come back to us because your project can't be completed. Or if when you applied for the grant, this pricing was the pricing for a piece of equipment at that point, but you got a sale on it, or it was more expensive and you had to adjust what you purchased. Those things need to be communicated with myself, or if I'm not there, maybe one of my coworkers. There needs to be a very clear outline of how that money is going to be spent. So if it can't be used as proposed, all of it may have to come back, or a portion may have to come back. And that doesn't mean that you guys anyone did anything wrong, but prices change. And we've had that happen in the positive, that somebody got a really great sale on one of their budgeted items. And I can't say that this is how it would always work, but they were able to redirect that funding to some other items that fit the original proposal. So that kind of information has to be communicated with us. And then when you're completing your evaluation forms, if you providing receipts, being able to explain that you spent the money how you said it was going to be spent. Photos help that, coincidentally. Other than that, I think that is the end of our presentation. And I included a Maya Angelou quote. If it's true that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, isn't it also true a society is only as healthy as its sickest citizen and only as wealthy as its most deprived? Southeast Kansas isn't super healthy. We want to make it healthy. So we are going to open it up to Q&A. online too. So if anyone on the webinar has questions, type it in and we will address them.
Yeah, we'll open it up to questions. Go ahead, Peyton.
So I wanted to say something that was when you were talking about making mistakes and not being funded. So I helped one of our local police departments to get a grant. And so in that grant, it asked for specific supplies. We listed those specific supplies, and in our mind, we thought that they understood what they were for. So we assumed that they would understand, and they didn't. And so we didn't receive that grant because it was a simple misunderstanding. So what it was we had written to use railroad ties. And those railroad ties, it was for a range grant, and so for like a shooting range. And so they assumed that we were going to use those railroad ties for a shooting berm, for like a backstop. And that wasn't it. We already had a very nice in-place backstop that was made out of dirt. We only needed the railroad ties for parking, to keep the rock from erosion and from moving out. And so by us not explaining in that grant what they were being used for, they thought that we were using it for a prohibited measure in the grant, and it wasn't. It was actually for something that we were using to try to make for sustainability for that place. And so after we did call back and ask them why we didn't receive the grant, it was that reason, and both of us kind of went, oh, because we both were totally misunderstanding. But sometimes it's so easy as that. It's just understanding and just explaining what that common thing is. That may be the difference between you getting that grant and not.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Peyton. So I'm going to repeat it for our friends online and kind of summarize that. You know, it's good. A good message is don't assume that the funders know what you're talking about or what's in your budget. And if there's any question, it's always important to explain that your budget. And Kara did a really good job clarifying what that budget outline can be and to explain your itemized costs and the purpose of the items you have in your budget.
Question back in the back.
Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I want to share this with everybody here because
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to have you pause real quick. Hang on. So we can do this.
Oh, I got a teacher voice. Thank you.
Our online friends can't.
Oh, they can. Okay. I just found this on Amazon the other day. It's called The Queen of Grants, From Teacher to Grant Writer to CEO, which is half of my story. So I've scanned through the book. It does address AI and the use of AI in grants and how not to use it and how to use it. And I just thought I would share it. This was written in 2024 by the CEO and founder of GrantWatch, which is a subscription service to find grants. So she knows what she's talking about. Awesome. And I just wanted to share it with everybody. So if they wanted to get a copy, it's on sale right now on Amazon. So.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Good plug. I love the resource.
I'm sorry?
The title.
The Queen of Grants, From Teacher to Grant Writer. It's by Libby Hikind, Hikind.
Perfect. I like the resource sharing that's happening.
Yes.
I know we've had one question about will participants get the slides?
Yes.
Get copies of the slides? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Something else I was going to talk about that kind of from the very beginning of our conversation was possibly like maybe, again, using this opportunity, right? Those that are closest to the problem often have the solutions. It sounds like maybe some kind of like more local grant search tool or kind of network could be really, really helpful for all of us in Southeast Kansas. I think that was something, Kara, you had kind of mentioned.
Yeah, it literally was just discussed yesterday and today, so nothing has been implemented, but getting a collaborative group together to create a resource list that, like, did you say your name was Sarah? How Pivot wasn't a good resource. Maybe that would be good to have on there so that somebody doesn't waste months of their time, but also including, I mean, I'm not going to be able to myself find every single avenue that you guys can search, but if we all get together and can somehow create a collaborative resource list, it could only be helpful.
maybe use a Teams channel to do that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I
Teams or?
welcome any sorts of ideas to potentially get it started. But yeah, Teams was thrown around. A Google Doc, I don't know if that's feasible, but anyhow, this is very much in brainstorming phase. So, any other questions? Oh.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, thank
Give
you.
us steps in. Sorry.
Sorry.
Thanks, Darcy. And make sure, if this is your first time, like putting a question, make sure you share who you are and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Darcy Schultz. Am I talking to this? I am the general manager at Memorial Auditorium for the City of Pittsburgh. Does the general funds grant with Community Foundation require a match?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't, none of our applications require a match.
Okay.
It's helpful if you have it, but none of them require.
Okay. And then second question, for that June 1, June 30, is June 30th the deadline?
Which I apologize.
The general funds?
Oh, yeah, the close date is the 30th.
Is the 30th?
The end of the month.
And then when is the activity period for when the funds are?
Like the open application period?
No, not the application, but when the activity takes place. Like, is it?
Implementation.
So you'll get typically a year to complete your activity and complete your evaluation form. Abby mentioned Murphy's Law. Things happen. We are a smaller agency, so we do have the capability of giving people grace, and it's happened. So if you run into contractors not being able to work, things not, the supply chain running out of something, we are happy to listen to those concerns and adjust accordingly if the committees agree. So.
Do we need any of that repeated for online?
I don't know. Okay. You can also remind the online folks that they can ask questions.
Yes, for our friends online, please put questions in the chat.
One in the back there.
Yeah, there's one in the back.
Yeah.
Okay, on my way.
How long usually until the grant application is closed before funds are open?
I'll get to that in just a second.
Maria Billingsley with Leadership Labette. On the project budget form, if we do a fundraiser, on the bottom of that page, where do we enter that?
So that will be, can I see the budget form? I apologize. I should know my stuff a little bit better. Okay, so when you put that in, you'll just do a line item. Thank you. You'll use a line item, and if you have a fundraiser, realistically, you could either put it in secured or earned. Once you have that fundraiser, theoretically, you would have that money and have access to it. So you use your judgment where you want to put that. It doesn't have to be, on the application that I was going to show you, there was a $25,000 fundraiser, and I put it under earned because it was fees, tickets, sales, etc. So, but it didn't have to go there. So I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Oh, you're fine.
We had another question here. She asked the window of time from the close of the application to the announcement of awards. It's going to vary because we have to schedule actual people to come together and have time to read the applications. We usually give them about 2 weeks, and then arrange a time for everyone to get together, have that discussion, and make the decisions. Then I have to input all of the data into the system, into our platform. I would say within a month, if there is ever any like meteor, that's not going to happen. But it's all pretty subjective, huh?
Murphy's Law.
I didn't mean to put that in the universe. And then once once the notifications have been made, we have a process within Community Foundation that takes a little bit of time to get those funds distributed. Some of the funds have like an award ceremony where checks will be presented in person. Some of them are mailed out. So everything is kind of, there's not one single set answer to that question. But we try to get everything notified and out within a month.
Am I missing anybody on this side?
Am I loud enough?
So I heard you say that you not only, but you consider Southeast Kansas, applicants. So if you're applying from Kansas City or whatever. So what do you consider, what counties are Southeast Kansas for you all?
Good question. We don't have a definition of Southeast Kansas, and it's going to depend grant cycle to grant cycle. Some of them will just fund a Crawford County. Some of them will fund Crawford, Cherokee, and Labette County. We've got some that are just to Bourbon County. So it really is going to be very specific. And when applications open, there is a summary that explains what will be funded, what won't be funded. What won't be funded, the service areas, things like that. So you should have available a guideline for what kinds of things will be funded.
Okay.
And where.
Okay.
But no, we don't have a Southeast Kansas definition.
There was a good question online while we wait. There's a second.
Yes.
When filling out a grant application, if I add that I would accept partial funding, does that automatically put me in the partial funding award category?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Just saying that you'll accept what they have to offer them.
And it is becoming more and more prevalent that partial funding is a thing. I've sat through many a committee meeting, and the committee members will table a great project until later to see what they might have left, or they'll decide on an amount but then realize that they have to kind of take away from some to fund others. So it doesn't automatically mean that you won't get full funding, but it is becoming a little more prevalent that is a standard, I guess.
Question back here.
Oh, sorry.
Let me address that since I'm one of the evaluators. If they're not ready to accept partial funding, that would make me say, well, if you can't accept partial funding, then we can't help you if that's all the money we have. So to me, it's better to say, yes, you would accept partial funding, because as an evaluator, I would say probably 99% of them are partially funded, because most of them say they're seeking funding other ways, and we only have a certain amount of money, and we want to make that go as far as we can. Question in the back?
Oh, I just want to address the partial funding issue. We've been fortunate enough with CFSEK to receive several grants that were partially funded. And what we do when we get that funding is we notify them that we're going to have to reduce our impact by a certain amount, and we tell them how much that funding will fund, and as long as they're agreeable to it, then we can move forward. And then when we do the evaluation, we again mention in there that the funding was not complete as far as what was requested, but this is what we were able to do with what we were given. And I think as long as you stick with that kind of process, you'll be okay. Correct?
Okay. That's a great point. I mean, we truly would like to fund as much as we possibly can and reach as many needs as we can. So if that means partial funding, and as you said, if you have to reduce what you're able to do, we understand that. And that's how we like to see us work with you.
I have received a partial grant, and what I had told them that since they had gave me the partial grant, that I would be able to do a fundraiser to to make up for the other part, to make them seem that, I want them to see that I am doing everything I possibly can on my end too. So whatever we didn't get as the whole, we got half, we made it up for in fundraising.
Excellent. Did everybody hear that? They only got partial funding, so they did a fundraiser to make up the difference. I mean, that's the kind of thing that we have to do to make these projects work. The need for the money is there, so if you can share that with your friends and people you know who like to help, that's a great thing to do.
Do we have any online questions?
We have not any online questions for a brief bit.
We
Another
do.
request would not be bad.
Something I we sort of touched on about where to look for funds as well is look at your state agencies that are, again, relevant, whether that's Department of Corrections, Department of Health, Department of Aging. Look at those resources and see the contacts. Those are, and whether that they have funding opportunities or partnership opportunities or not, again, another really good resource to have in your pocket and to talk through. And then and they're going to have your contact when the larger grants that are just funded to those state agencies first, and then they're going to be looking for partners, and they're going to have your name on a list. So again, it's always worth the connection.
Join mailing lists. We have one. We make 1,000 announcements for every scholarship opening, grant opening, when it's getting ready to close. So join email lists. You'll get. Or Facebook, social media.
Yeah. Social media.
Yeah.
Follow our Facebook page, please.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm coming your way. Be sure to introduce yourself.
I'm LaDonna Hughes, and I'm just a person.
They can't hear you.
I'm LaDonna Hughes, and I'm just a person. This is the first time I've ever come to a grant thing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I'm not with an agency. I'm just a person who has seen a need for something. I do have a foster home, and I work as a special education teacher, and I have a child with an emotional disability. So I have seen something in all of those roles that I feel like there is a need for something. So that leads to my question is, I feel completely ill-equipped and unqualified to start this process. This was my step one of how could I even begin to get the funding for something this big. This dream is way bigger than I could ever tackle. And one of the questions that I keep asking myself is, so you're talking about partial funding, so okay, I get partial funding, but what happens? It just sits in an account until I get the rest of the funding? Is that person okay with that? Is that, and I probably have a million questions that is not fair to the entire group for me to get answers to, but that is one of them.
Okay. I think just like in a classroom setting, no question is irrelevant. There's probably more people here that have the same questions that you do than you think. So first thing to touch on, at CFSEK, I can't speak for other granting agencies, you have to be a nonprofit, agency with a 501c3, a government agency, educational institution, or a religious institution, not for specific religious events, but anyways, or use a fiscal sponsor. So if you are starting a project but you don't have a 501c3, you could reach out to a church or a school or, I don't know, DCF. That might be slightly unlikely, but you could reach out and collaborate and use them as a fiscal sponsor. We have that information in the nonprofit status sheet. But so I would go out on a limb and say that grants outside of ours have a time limit to use them and be able to report on them. So if you don't have a plan for building the rest of the funding after a partial fund, it might be a good idea to wait and get some other things built before that happens. Because if it just sits there and doesn't get used, it could affect your viability of getting future funding. So, you know, delays will only take you so far before, again, I can't speak for every agency, but before we would request the initial funding back.
And
sorry.
I'm going to address that also. Dream Big Little One is a very good example of what we talk about partial funding. When you do that budget breakdown of what you need, they maybe wanted 20 beds, but we can only provide money for 10. So it's not, I guess the idea is not looking at, I need $100,000 to do this whole project, but can we support part of your project? That's what we want to know. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you could do that part of your project, you would get the money, as Kara said earlier, within a month or whatever, so that you could complete that part of your project. But that's what we're really talking about when we're talking about partial funding. When you do that budget breakdown, we can pick out items that says, well, we can support that, and they can go ahead and purchase that and use that. So does that make sense? Good. Sorry.
And I think what I would add too is to look to other local agencies that may have some alignment with the goals that you have, because it's likely that they may have a position on the board available, or they're looking for volunteers and they're looking for ideas on the next project or next thing. Yeah, engage in your not only local agencies but coalitions, community coalitions, community groups, to kind of learn and make connections with other similarly aligned projects.
And the power of social media too can get you in connection with other people that are, like she said, doing similar things, but maybe not be larger agencies. So, hey guys, I've had this going around in my head for a little while now. Does anybody have any insight into how I can implement it? So
Local coalitions as well.
Yes.
Are aligned with your priority.
Okay, sorry, I'm back again. For Community Foundation, is it all privately funded money, or is any of the money coming from a federal source that might compete with other funding sources as you're putting it all together?
I should have asked this question a long time ago. Does everybody know what a community foundation is? I'm going to take that as a no. So we take donated funds. Sometimes there's a special interest associated with it. Sometimes, say, our scholarships. A lot of them are memorial funds. So if somebody passes away and they want to build a scholarship in memoriam of a certain person, they donate those funds. If they request that it be endowed, we're going to invest it in the stock market. And there's a little more not science, but a little more to this than that. And then we're going to fund the scholarship or grants or things like that off of the income. Is that the right word?
Interest.
Interest, thank you, sorry. And it's over a certain amount of time and, things like that. So it is privately funded from donor funds. And when I mentioned earlier our competitive grants, we have a whole bunch of other funds that are set to fund to a specific agency or a specific interest group, things like that. So we do a lot of granting outside of just the ones that you guys have to apply for. So, okay. Yes.
I'd like to address that. It's people like you and me who provide these funds. It's community people who do this. So that's what I'm saying. Don't be afraid to talk to people about the Community Foundation. It's going to help us here in our area of the state. And all you can get is a no, and you're no worse off, right? So it truly is people like you and like me that have provided this money. Okay, I'm sorry, Matt.
We also have a page. Oh, I'm so sorry. We also have a page on our website, and I'll make sure to email it out to all of you. so that you can access it, but it's what is a community foundation. And it's just sort of a brief explainer of what a foundation is. We could be here for 24 hours explaining what all we do, but that's a brief one.
And we are running a little short on time. So do we want to, I saw a couple hands go up in the back. We're pretty quiet online, but we are also here and we have the room blocked for like another hour or so. So we're here to connect and network. We've got 3 minutes?
30.
Oh, we have 30 minutes?
Until it's 3:24.
Oh, perfect.
I thought we closed it. Yeah, whatever, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was 3:30.
We do have another question online though.
Okay, while we're here, we'll do the question online.
Is funding available for governmental entities through CFSEK? I guess my real question is, do we have to be a 501c3 to get grants from your foundation?
You don't. No. Governmental agencies, educational institutions, religious institutions, you'll be required to provide a W-9 for your agency as long as your project is intended for a charitable purpose. There was a mention of match day. It can get a little bit into the weeds, but some of our funds on Giving Tuesday, we might update the date. Don't quote me on that, but we might not do it on Giving Tuesday. But Match Day is an opportunity for community members to donate to CFSEK funds. So Dream Big Little One or Safe House Crisis Center or CHC, to donate to them through our agency. So that is the worst explanation of that possible. Oh, and Giving Tuesday is the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Okay. Any?
So I don't know if you could answer this question exactly, but do you guys prioritize a bigger impact for a smaller amount of people or a smaller impact for a larger amount of people? So when we're trying to decide on projects, for example, normalizing eating fruits and vegetables for kids, should I ask for funds for a project for one school that would do snacks every day, or a project that would do like a porch tomato for every child in the district?
That'll be, so she asked about large scale projects to support less people or more people supported with a smaller idea. That she said it better. That's going to be a committee by committee and even year over year. So maybe one year a committee decided to do a larger impact project, and the next year they want to spread it out a little bit more. And I don't want to super plug into all of our funds. We have in February 1st opening up our Mount Carmel Foundation Legacy Grant Cycle. The intent of the funders on this is to have the option for those large impact projects. So they might want to fund a $150,000 project this year, but then next year fund $151,000 projects. I hope that's not right.
Can I address her?
Yes.
And as someone who looks at the grants, and I do look at the number it's going to serve, but I also look at the amount of money you're asking for. So if you're asking for $10,000 and it's only going to serve 10 people, I'm going to go, maybe our money is better served somewhere else. But if you're going to impact 200 people with maybe $3,000, that makes, so I do look at that, and I do consider the amount you're asking for the impact it's going to make. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Did everybody hear me on that? I hope so.
Is there a hand?
No.
No? Okay.
That's what she said.
Any more questions? Any more comments?
Are we tired but inspired?
Tired but inspired.
Goal achieved. What'd you say, Abby?
I said accusations.
Yes, any accusations, you can hold it all against us, absolutely.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very much.
Okay.